Welcome to episode 9 of Shared Discovery, the show and podcast dedicated to sharing the exciting and enjoyable aspects of games and gaming. I'm your host, Victor, and I'm once again joined by Ron. Welcome back. It's a new day.
It's a new day.
We changed some things this new day. Welcome back. How have you been?
Oh, I'm a little slap
Since
happy.
yesterday.
Right? Since yesterday. I'm a little slap happy right now.
Yeah, you're slap happy because we have an exciting episode for you.
Exhilarating.
Your favorite topic.
My favorite topic?
History.
My favorite topic.
I think we're going to talk about history today.
Yes, history.
We're going to get into the history of games. We're going to first start with what games are. We're going to get a definition. We're going to talk about what games are, what play is, and we're going to talk about where games came from.
Just get into it.
Get into it.
Yeah.
We're not going to get all of it today. So we could talk about history. That's just the podcast now.
It could be.
No.
It really could be. I don't want to, but it could be.
No, I am really excited, and I've learned a lot in the research from this. What games have you been playing since last time?
What games
last episode.
Since last episode.
Since yesterday.
Oh, man. Just, Root. I got to play that recently.
Solid.
That was great.
That's always a good time.
Trying to get John Company back up.
Oh, yeah? Did you ever finish? No, you just said that.
We're still trying to
Still
finish.
trying to finish that whole one game. Are you close?
No.
Okay.
It's like another at least 4 hours before we're done. We've
That's
played
pretty
for
close.
8.
That's cool. That's over halfway there.
It's over halfway there.
Fantastic. I have actually been playing not Vampire Survivor, V Rising. I mixed up my vampire game. V Rising is a vampire survival game where you come back to life after all these years and you have to rebuild your castle, make sure you're getting blood, staying out of sunlight, defeating bosses, and they just had their first expansion, first big patch in 9 months.
That's exciting.
57,000 revisions. Like, oh, this is gonna be good. And it's been super fun. Like, they've updated so much, added a whole new region, 2 new regions, new bosses, a whole new skill tree. So that's been keeping me busy. Having a great time with that. Been in a vampire kick lately.
That's pretty cool.
Vampires are cool.
Yeah.
Wasn't always a vampire guy, but they're cool. What We Do in the Shadows did that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, vampires are pretty alright.
Pretty all right. Okay. We should do an episode on vampire games. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
History of vampire games.
Plenty of them.
There's so many. But we're not talking about vampires today. Maybe there are some old vampire games, but we didn't find them. We're in our history.
No. I don't think they really had the complexity of like materials and pieces. Like
They couldn't do it, right?
Role-playing games are rather relatively recent.
Sure.
So like, what are they going to do in ancient times? Like, they don't even really know what a vampire. I don't think the concept of vampirism.
Where did that come from?
Oh, that I can actually answer.
Oh yeah, let it rip.
It's like 17th or 18th or century, 19th century, whatever, however that works, 1800s, right?
Yeah.
And the rich people preying on the poor is where the image of the vampire comes from, and like sucking the fluids out of the poor people and like empowering themselves and enriching themselves. That's like Bram Stoker's Dracula was literally the first vampire. Sure. And it's all about like some rich noble hid away in a castle that's like leeching life energies off of like poor people that he has visit his castle and stuff.
That's
and he's
super cool.
Like debauched and like amoral.
And it makes sense, right? Like there's a lot of vampires still in our society.
Right. You think about landlords, right? Just extractive. They don't give any value to society. They just take.
Exactly. So I'm learning already. We got our professor gear on.
Yay!
We're diving back into history. Well, let's actually get into the history of board games.
Sure.
So tell me, what do you think? What is the oldest board game you've played?
Oldest board game I've played is got to be like chess or Go or something like that, because I don't think I've actually played Mancala. I've just looked at a Mancala game and been like, that looks like it sucks.
That sure looks like a game.
Yes, it has a board.
That's funny that you say that, because when you asked this question when we were working on this, it's like, it's chess, right? It has to be. And then I was talking about Mancala, and you're like, that one. It's that one.
Yep.
That's the game. I was like, oh, really? It's older than chess?
Yeah, we'll get into it.
We're going to get into that. I have some cool stories to tell about Mancala. It can be boring, but you can cheese it. Just you wait. So, as we get into the topic, we're going to split this up into 2 parts. We're going to split it up into what games and play are.
Definitions.
Start the definitions so you can know what people through history are doing. Like, what are actually games?
Should we have defined history too?
Oh, no.
Or is that too much?
Oh, no.
We'll just stick with 2.
Two definitions per episode, maximum. So, we are not historians, even if we look like it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be getting this information from people who've got this information from people who got this information from people.
It's like 3rd order, 4th order facts.
Yeah. So we're going to have fun with it. If we mess some pronunciations up, if we mess up some facts, we're going to give you the people that we actually got this from. We're going to provide you with those resources. Right. Don't you worry.
And no promises that I'm going to pronounce anything correctly, because it's me.
Yeah. It's
not a
wrong.
linguist, you know.
I mess up words all the time. But if there's anything that we do mess up, anything that you are like, I know this fact about, you want to have a conversation with us, you can email us about that. And we'd love to have that conversation.
Just be kind.
Absolutely.
I don't want to cry because you've hurt my feelings.
You want to cry because they boosted your ego.
Yes.
Because of compliments.
Right.
Yeah, good cheers.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
There's joy. Let's get into it.
Tell me about play, Ron.
Games.
What is it? Why do people do it?
Play. Why do people do play? That's, I feel like, different. But, I mean, maybe it's part of the definition. I'm not sure. Play is like...
What is it?
This real nebulous concept, right? It's just... like, oh, people play, people do things. It's a range of intrinsically motivated. So like, it usually comes from yourself. Like, you want to be happy, so you play, right? Activities done for recreational pleasure and enjoyment. Play is commonly associated with children because, like, literally first thing comes to mind is playground. Children.
Yeah, that's what comes to mind immediately. Yeah, exactly.
That's play, right? And juvenile level activities, but anyone of any level, as we've said in previous episodes, and we'll continue to say, anyone can play, anyone can have fun. Like,
get back to episode 1 with the statistics.
I would even argue
every age play games.
Exactly. If anything, it's consistent through the ages, right?
Absolutely.
And like, I would even argue that like that's the point of like why we do things, is to play, is to have fun, is to get free time. Like, you don't go to work so that you can work more. You go to work so then you can enjoy stuff.
To create the time to enjoy things, to get the resources you need to enjoy things.
Yeah, get the resources. And
when I think about intrinsically motivated as opposed to extrinsically. So intrinsically is you're doing it because something inside you wants to do it and it's rewarding, and that's the only reason.
Yep.
Extrinsically motivated, you're doing it because you need to get something. You need money.
You're starving.
You need food. You don't necessarily want to do this, but something is outside of your control is compelling you to do it, right? I think of the way I learned this in personal training class is like, let's talk about tag, right? You're doing that for fun because it's good time. But when you go in and exercise, you're doing that because you want some benefit. You want some health benefit. You want to have better cardio, better longevity, better, breathing, all of these things. But sometimes exercise can be intrinsically motivating if you just find it fun. But a lot of times it's because you want to be healthier. Where like tag, you're going to get health benefits, but that's not the reason you're doing it.
Right. You're not trying to build your quads by sprinting around tagging people like that. You don't see that at the gym.
You're not going to see that at the gym.
No.
Power tag.
Are you throwing people? I would love to see it, but it sounds dangerous.
So you have a quote here, and you have part of the definition that says play is inherently irrational, and then you have a quote that says all play means something.
And that quote comes from Dutch dude named Johan Huizinga, who's like, he wrote a book in 1938 about play and the function of play in society and culture and stuff like that, and how it's like, that's why we do stuff, right? It's so that we can play, so that we can go have fun. That's why we.
It's a core motivator from his hypothesis, from his theory.
Right, a really core motivator of humanity. And it's not just humanity that plays either. Like birds and most mammals in nature have forms of play. Like they play with each other all the time. You'll see a bird bath, like birds splashing water on each other and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Water sports.
And we've seen, and I think that's it. The bird bath, what comes to mind is like that can be extrinsically motivating where you got to wash off, but some birds will just do it because it's a play. It's fun to them. And it's like the example as we went through this was like apes. Like you go to the zoo, you watch them playing like stick games and stuff, and they'll play tag sometimes, stuff like that. So I thought that these were contradictory, right?
Yeah,
play
irrational.
Is inherently irrational, but all play means something. But we worked through this, and I was like, okay, those aren't contradictions. Explain that a little.
Right. So irrational just means it's not founded in logic. You're not playing because it like pays money or it does something like necessarily material. It can, like a good mood is kind of material, like uplifting yourself, right? But it's irrational. It's intrinsic. It's like, I want to have fun. That's not rational.
So the rational in this sense is coming from a like worker capitalist, like
18th century. Yeah, like the age of reason.
The rational thing to be doing at every time is something that's getting you money, getting you productivity. That's what I think of.
Yep.
So when you put it in that terms, then you look at this quote and say, all play means something. It means something to you, but not in the context of that rational society.
Right. You're not doing play to become more efficient at like factory work or something like that. You're doing play to like take care of yourself and have fun.
Exactly.
It means something to you, and you'll build memories. Like we said before in the
memories are huge.
Memories are huge. Who doesn't want to have good memories? And if most of your memories are good because you've been doing a lot of play and stuff like that, like that's a good time. That's
absolutely. And it's like, what did we say? Episode 1, fun. Number 1 most important reason to play games.
Yep.
So let's look at Johan Huizinga. Let's look at his theory a little bit. What did he say about play?
So he defines play as free. Play is free. It is freedom. Play is not ordinary or real life. It's like crazy, wacky, magical, pretend castles, like building countries.
The ground is lava.
Right, exactly. Tag is just hunter and hunted, and it's like you're not actually hurting each other like that. It's just like this imaginary, like, why are we even running after each other? It's fun.
Distinct from ordinary life, he said.
Right, where like you're chasing after, you're hunting someone in real life, that's like dangerous and like has connotations beyond just like we're doing a thing because it feels good or it's fun. Play is distinct from ordinary life as both locality and duration. So like in Carcassonne, you're building a city, but that is neither in France, it's right here in Michigan, and it is not building a real city because that would take like a century or something.
If we could find the technology to give you a box to contain the resources to build a city, that'd be cool.
Yeah, a whole
city. It's not gonna happen.
I don't think I have the room for that in my house.
Build a city. How long does it take to play Carcassonne? 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Build a city in 30 minutes?
And just building one house takes like months.
That's it.
Like, that's, so it's not ordinary. Play creates order. It is order in some sense. Like any of these games, you open it up, there's a rule book with very distinct rules and forms and how you're supposed to interact and do these things in the game.
And what we were talking about pre-show is thinking about kids, right? Anytime they start playing, right, here's the rules, here's the safe spot, you can't touch the ground. You'll hear them, you can't do that, you broke the rules, right? Because they will make rules and create order for this situation.
It's absolute and supreme. You break the rules, you go in the penalty box.
You're out.
You're out, you know, you take a break. And then finally, he says that play is connected with no material interest, Like I said before, you're not doing it to make money. You're doing it to have fun.
Again, that intrinsic motivation.
And no profit can be gained from it. It's purely coming from within, and everyone agreeing to do this thing together because it's enjoyable.
Absolutely. And so we wanted to get that definition there because as we go through history, as we see games move across the world, as we see them emerge in all of these societies, think about why these people are doing that.
Right.
They're bored.
They're bored. There's nothing else to do. They want to have fun. Maybe they've been hard at work in the fields and they're just like, I want to go to the tavern, have a drink with buddies, and like play a game. Like,
that's it.
Take it easy.
So think about that as we move forward. So let's get into what a game is. What are they playing? And
we got a couple of
definitions. First step was let's just Google it. What does Google say? And Google says a form of play or sport. We talked about what play is, you know what that is, and we'll talk about sports here in a second. A form of play or sport, especially a competitive one, played according to rules and decided by skill, strength, or luck. That's pretty cool, but that doesn't narrow it down. And what was really interesting is I type in what a game is, and Mark Rosewater, the designer of Magic the Gathering, comes up. I was like, I love this guy. I'm always listening to him. What's he have to say? So we're going to focus in on his definition, and we really like his definition. Really succinct, really breaks down what he defines a game, and that's how we're going to define it too, because we like it. So this is from Mark Rosewater's 2018 article, What is a Game? Fitting.
Right.
And his definition is, a game is a thing with a goal or goals, restrictions, agency, and lack of real-world relevance.
Oh, wow. Okay. So.
Or thing. That's what you need to have a game. So let's start with a goal or a goals. Or a goals. A goal or goals. And so he says there needs to be some point to the game. Players need a motivation. There has to be something that directs your actions.
Right. Build a city. Gamble over land rights. Do some war.
How do they win the game?
Right.
Right. Defeat your opponent.
Score some points.
Score some points. And he says that goals can be active. So like we said, like score some points, defeat your opponent, or they can be passive. Survive. Survival games have this a lot. It's like not actively directing you what to do, but you still have the goal of like, I need to take actions to keep me alive. Yeah. Right? So next he says restrictions. Tell us about, what does he have to say about restrictions?
This is like your obstacles that, keep players from simply just going straight to the end of the goal. Like Candyland isn't a straight line, right? It's all these, same with snakes and ladders. It's all these like paths and choices and options that you have to do, but there's things that stop you from directly going there.
Exactly, because there needs to be some challenge, or why are you playing the game if you can just do it?
Fun comes from overcoming challenges. But again, these aren't like real world challenges. Think like running hurdles. When have you ever done that in your real life? Like I've never had to like hurdle over shopping carts to get the last box of cookies or something.
No, I've never had to survive in the wilderness.
No.
That's part of the game. That's what the game is having us overcome.
Exactly.
And there's a sense of enjoyment, fun that comes from overcoming that.
Right.
So next, you mentioned this with the decisions that you get to make is agency. So a game needs to have decisions that matter, right? Having a choice where the proper way to play is always the same is not a decision. That's not good, right? There has to be meaningful decisions, and the player's involvement in the game is core to the experience. So you go out in the game, there has to be branching ways for you to solve the problems the game gives to you. You have to be able to make choices within the game.
Right.
And then lastly, we touched on this with play, right?
Yeah.
A lot, but lack of real-world relevance.
Because that's really key to the definition of play, is that it's imaginary, right? It's not like a buffalo is chasing you down through the forest and you gotta like get away from this thing. No, it's like paper and cardboard or like shell pieces or whatever. It's a game of something you opt into because there's something to gain, like a feeling of elation or a good time, or you want to just hang out with your buddies. We say play a game because it's an activity.
You opt in. Like that's the important. You choose to play that.
Life is not a game, despite it having game-like aspects. This is because life has real-world consequences. Like I was saying with the water buffalo chasing you down through the forest, right? You die if you don't get out of the way, or you get gored or maimed, right? It's not like, oh shucks, we lost the game.
As opposed to tag.
Right.
You're still running from someone, but oh no, I got tagged. Darn. You want to play again?
Still alive. Yeah, you want to play again?
Yeah.
Similar, but not the same.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of, like you see, game-like aspects, but it's not one-to-one.
Exactly.
You're not gonna die from losing at friggin' Galaxy Trucker.
Carcassonne. I might die.
Yeah, I'll die playing it.
Playing it, not losing it. But so just to recap those, we have. I just turned the page up. Didn't need to do that. We have goals or goals, restrictions, agency, and lack of real-world relevance. So now we're going to talk about. Mark says if you take away one of those criteria, it doesn't become a game anymore.
Right.
So what does it change it? Send it.
Lucky you got it to bounce. Oh,
You got to bounce. What happens if we take away one of those criteria? And
Changes.
This changes, right? So this first one, if you have restrictions, agency, and lack of real-world relevance, but you take away the goal or goals, it's a toy. Mark defines this as a toy, saying that there's only so much things you can do with the toy. You can play with it how you want. It doesn't matter how you play with the game, but when you get a toy, it doesn't tell you how you win, doesn't tell you what to do with it. So you take those goals away, this is a toy. And Mark says that the example he gives is Minecraft.
Oh, that's a great toy.
I think that's a great example.
Love that one.
Right?
Yeah.
So think about survival mode. You have the goal, the passive goal, to survive the game.
That's a game. Yeah.
You go into creative mode, it doesn't tell you anything to do. You have all the resources you need, and you can play how you want.
Yeah, I just think of like Tonka trucks. It's like you have a truck, you can do things with it. You can fill it with dirt, you can dump it out, but there's no like objective here. You're not trying to like go anywhere.
And I think what's important too is that toys can become pieces of games.
Yes.
Right, but on its own, it's not a game.
Right. Like I think of those Kickstarter games where they're like miniatures and they're big old pieces and stuff, and like
Have a lot of those.
it's a very toy aspect.
Yes.
It's like these huge hunk in Scythe, you've got the mechs and everything. It looks so cool, but they might not have a huge role in the game. Like we've had plenty of games of Scythe where they don't even do anything.
show up. Yeah.
I just deployed them because I want the points, right?
Sure.
But they're cool and they're like
cool
awesome.
aesthetic. Yeah, I've fallen into the Kickstarter trap because they're cool.
sure.
And it's like technically I could play with them, but they take up the whole board. They don't, and they're not needed. So no goals, that's a toy.
Let's go.
And then after that, you have activities, right? So if you do have a goal or goals, agency, lack of real world relevance, but you take away the restrictions, that is what Mark defines as an activity. So the example he gives here is jogging. You can run whatever distance you want. Say I want to run 5 miles. Cool. I can run where I want. Sweet. Nice. I'm going to do that. And there's no obstacles, really.
No.
But it's not something that you have to do. You don't have the goal of going to one place to the other. You're just doing it because you're going to end up at the same place. You're just doing it to run. So there's no real restriction.
You can probably gamify it pretty easily, but that's not what you're doing. You're like getting exercise.
I just mixed that up. You do have the goal of running 5 miles, right? I just said there's no goals.
Oh, no restriction.
No restriction.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Yep.
So it's something to do, not something to solve.
Right.
That's the distinction there. A game has something to overcome. You're not overcoming running. Maybe you need the willpower to run, but I'm not overcoming some obstacle.
You can't like solve running.
You can't solve running. Exactly.
How would you do that?
Right. So if you take away the restrictions, you have an activity. Tell us about an event.
An event. I love a good event. Going somewhere and like there's goals, like, seminar or something. We're going to talk about this thing. There's restrictions, like you can't just get up and wander around and do whatever you want. And there's and lack of real world relevance, like
like a movie is
Yeah,
what Mark the
that's
example
a
gives.
great idea. Yeah. And but no agency. I can't like choose where the movie is going to go, right? I can't go like, oh, that's stupid.
I hate that scene.
They
Cut
shouldn't.
it.
Don't go in the basement. Don't go in the basement. Why are you going in the basement?
What
Why
are
are
you
you splitting up?
doing? You're dumb.
Wait.
No matter how many times you watch the movie, you can't change it.
Can't change the outcome. It is set in stone.
set in
It's
stone.
linear. It's what it is. It is what it is.
So it becomes an event if you can't impact the outcome
There's
of
no
it.
self-expression here. It's someone expressing themselves to you. It's very like, sit down, enjoy this. It's
There
an
it is.
event.
Yep. There's think about a movie. Like you can only sit in certain places. There's rules on what time you have to be there, what snacks you can bring.
Starts and ends.
Starts and
Fireworks
ends.
shows. It starts and ends.
You have a goal. You want to see the movie through the way, but you have no choice in how it resolves.
Mm-hmm.
What about life?
Life is, it's got goals, it's got restrictions, it's got agency.
Sounds like a game to me.
But
Wait.
games lack real world relevance, and life is the real
That's true.
world. Is that how that works?
It is. It is the real world.
So there's consequences.
Mm-hmm.
There's like monetary. There's like psychological. There's like all the consequences that exist in
Often
life.
physical consequences.
like,
Yes.
That's life, right?
Absolutely.
It's not being done for entertainment or education. It's being done because you
I gotta eat.
You have to.
I got.
Yeah.
Like I gotta do laundry. I gotta go to the bathroom.
Gotta sleep.
Gotta sleep.
Gotta go to work. Gotta do whatever, you know?
So again, thinking back to opting in, right? Those things you have to do, you're not opting into them.
No, it just is.
It just is.
Pretty simple. And then there's sports.
Yeah. So Mark talks about how a sport can be a game or an activity that involve a strong physical component, right? And so think about like football, baseball, tennis, soccer. These are all games. They fit all of their criteria. You
Yes.
have a goal.
You're not missing it.
You're not missing any of them, right? But then you have sports like sprinting, lifting, running that he defines as activities. 'Cause
Yes.
they are to test a particular skill without restrictions, right? Think about sprinting. Okay, well, I'm going to run from here to here.
Just go as fast as you can.
Just go as fast as you can. What's the real restriction there? Like you have the agency to go faster, you got the goal. Like there's no real world relevance, I guess. I guess you get a little healthier, but it's still like not really. So that's what he defined. That's the distinction he makes between sports. Some sports are games, some are activities. Just look if there's restrictions.
And I think like sprinting becomes more of a game and less of an activity when it's like competitive sprinting, right?
Sure.
Like track and field or the Olympics where they actually have like competitive, like you're running alongside someone.
Yeah,
right?
there are restrictions. You can't step on the line.
Yep.
You can't interfere with people.
Right.
So
it's cheating.
yeah. So there are some distinctions there. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. And then
The last thing Mark mentions are puzzles, right? So not all puzzles are games because they often lack agency.
I've heard games get called puzzles, but it's always like an argument, right? This happens a lot on BoardGameGeeks.com. It's
Yeah.
that people call like Spirit Island a puzzle and not a game because there's like you're just trying to figure out optimal moves and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's variable and you have agency. Like you don't have to choose the optimal move like in the moment, like because there's things that unfold and change as it goes along. It's not set in stone. Like you think a 1,000-piece puzzle, you're just putting pieces in their spots.
Yeah, there's one solution.
Yep.
Like there's really not a lot of you can't really change the outcome of the puzzle. So that's what a puzzle is. It lacks agency if there's one solution. But what's really cool is some puzzles are becoming games over time as sandbox games allow people to solve puzzles in different ways.
And I've even heard of like puzzle tournaments.
Really?
Where you have the same puzzle and you're sitting across from someone. Or it's the same puzzle that you're working on and it's who can get the most pieces.
It becomes a race.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's
I like
really
that.
fun.
I like that one. And so I think of Zelda, like the modern Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, these new Zelda games that have a lot of sandbox elements that allow players to solve these puzzles in a lot of unique, dynamic, different ways. So that becomes a game when the player has the agency.
All right.
If there's a singular solution, not a game.
Right. Kind of sandboxy in that way. It's like puzzles. If you have like a bunch of tools and a problem, and it's just like, I don't know, figure it out.
Figure it out.
That's more of a game.
Exactly, because agency is key. So as we move into part 2 here, remember that a game has a goal or goals, agency, restriction, and lack of real world significance.
Right, and play is all about, like, you're trying to have fun. You're not trying to make money off something. That's called gambling, right? Like, it's different.
That's true.
We can get into a little bit of history of gambling.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit in here. And then think about play, it's coming from within. The reason you're doing it's coming from within.
Exactly, and that starts us off with a history section.
History, let's go. Okay, so tell us about our sources. Where do we get this?
Yeah, most of this comes from like 2 sources, 3 really, but it's like we watched a video by Quentin Smith and Shut Up and Sit Down. That's called 8,000 Years of Board Game History in 43 minutes.
It's a great video. Check it. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, highly recommend anything by Quentin Smith. Like, can't recommend enough.
Fantastic.
Shut Up, Sit Down. Tons of really good board game reviews and board gaming podcast and all sorts of stuff. Real professionals. And that gives us most of what we're going to be talking today, and most of what he talks about in the video comes from this fellow called Tristan Donovan and a book called It's All a Game, which details the history of games.
Sure.
And then I wanted to include sport because sport is games.
It's a very classic original game, right?
It's one of them. It's
one
up
of them.
there.
It's one of them.
I mean, I can't imagine sprinting. Like, it's probably, like, races have probably existed as long as there are feet.
Yeah, as long as there are feet, yeah.
How long have feet existed?
That's a different podcast.
Like, I think, reaching back into my cobweb brain, something like humans that look like us have been around for like 10,000 years.
Okay.
Like psychologically and physically similar humans have been around for about 10,000 years.
If we're wrong, let us know. Email us or put in the comments.
Because I like knowing this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like my domain. It's fun for me. For
absolutely.
some reason. Yeah.
And let's get into it.
Yeah?
Oh, it's the last source here is Mary Bellis.
For history of sports.
The history of sports specifically. So keep those sources in mind. That's where we're coming from with this overview of history.
Yes.
And I really like what you put here for this first bullet point.
Yeah, kind of a primer.
Primer.
I say that a lot, but it's like to get us in the mood, get us in the headspace, right? Is that games have been with us longer than the written word. So longer than there was writing, longer than there's hieroglyphs, we have been playing games. That's like board games. That's sports. That's games.
Yes.
Games as we think of them have existed for so long. That 10,000 years I was talking about, it's probably, like, we don't know how.
We don't know how or what games they were playing, but
they were doing it.
They were probably doing it.
And that really, like, gives you an idea of, like, how, like, just like written word, just how all ideas spread. They're spread through war, missionary action, trade routes, and they've traveled the whole world this way.
And that's what we'll see as we get into some of the specific games. They just like go across the world, and people are like, give me. I need entertainment. I need something new.
Greedy for
give me
new
something
games.
new to do.
Right, because you imagine there are places in the world that have one game for hundreds of years, and then all of a sudden, new game drops.
Like, I don't care if it's bad. I want to play.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they cared if it was bad.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll get into that too.
Yeah, but enough.
So if we get into a little bit of sports here.
Right, just at the top.
Just at the top. So the documented history of sports goes back at least 3,000 years.
Right. We know it goes back further, but that's
documented. Yeah, and in the beginning, sports are often involved in the participation of war, right? So training the hunters, so throwing spears or sparring, throwing rocks, stuff like that. And it's like, I think about modern day, like gamification. There are things we got to do. Let's turn it into game to have people help it be less of a chore.
Makes it easier, right? Like, I do my homework for Golden Stars.
Yeah.
You know,
and we just talked about no real world relevance, so maybe we're contradicting ourselves. But, Oh no.
I'm sure Johan Huizinga has something to say about that, but that's for another episode.
I wonder if Mark has something to say about that.
I think he said it can't, right? Like, it's not a game. Gamification is not a game. It's gamification.
I guess if we're using purely Mark's definition, gamification can't be a game.
No.
If it has this real world significance.
It's like a hollow, like, effigy. Like, it looks like a game, acts like a game, but it's not a game.
So if it has this explicit purpose of benefiting you in life, not a game. But if it's like you do get some benefit out of it, secondarily, can be a game.
Right.
Solid.
Though some could argue that like having fun is a benefit, right? That's true. But it's like mental. It's like imaginary.
More intrinsic, not that external benefit that we were talking about.
And like games are magical, and that's like why people play them, and that's why they do them. Is it like prepares you for real world things, like with sports, like we said with training and war preparation. It literally prepares your mind to do these things in more intense and real world situations.
And that's where the Olympics came out of, right? The first Olympics were in 776 BCE, right? And they were back in ancient Greece, but they had like chariot races, foot races, and
spear throwing, discus, wrestling.
Yep. So a lot of sports that are still in the Olympics today.
Yep.
So we got to go back further, though. That's sports. We talked about sports. Let's talk about board games. What is the first board game?
Yeah, we just covered sports because it's technically games. It counts. We can't leave it out.
We can't leave. It's important because it's a really important part of the history of games.
And tons of people do sports.
Absolutely.
There's like no doubt about it. Like I don't know, most of my family watches football Monday night, Sunday night, and watches the Olympics, but like try to get them to play any of these, and they're like, "What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Like you're playing a more complicated sport in your brain with sports than like any of these games, like, or it's on par with most of these games, and you're saying you don't want to do it, but it involves you instead of you just passively watching." And
trust us. Once we go through this history, they're gonna play with us.
Hopefully.
I think so.
I'd put money on it.
I think so.
But that's gambling. That's not a game.
Okay, we're getting in the weeds here.
Right.
We're getting in the 8,000-year-old weeds with Mancala.
Yeah.
So this is the first game, and you, in the research, you told me that like you did play the first game, and I used to play this for fun.
As fun as it can be.
And I played this with a friend, and I got bored. They were sick of playing. And what Mancala is, it's a board that has slots on each side. You're sitting across from each other, small circular slots, usually like 6 on each side, and then a longer one that's a basket at the end.
Yep.
So you'll pick up seeds or marbles or little pieces that are in all of these baskets. You'll pick them all up, drop one in, going counterclockwise, I believe. Drop one in until you can't anymore, and then the game ends when the person has the most points in their basket.
Right.
So what I did is I was like, how can I get the most points in my basket when I go first?
Yeah.
So what's the math? What's the cheese to do that? So I would do it. If I went first, I almost guaranteed to win the game because they're like, this basket wins me the game.
And that's something that people have been doing for 8,000 years. It's such a simple game to play that hunters and gatherers, they'd have their pockets, or if they had pockets, like their bags full of seeds and stuff. So you could literally play it in the dirt.
Yep.
Some people carried stones around that had things carved into them.
Oh yeah, pebbles, little pieces of seeds or whatever, and you would just carve holes into like
the ground,
stone, whatever, and that's the game that they were playing.
And you just play it and have a good time. And even up to 100 years ago in Eastern Africa, it was used as a way to determine if you were a good leader or not. Is how well you played Mancala.
I would have been a good leader.
Oh yeah.
If I went first.
Oh, yeah. You went first?
If I went first.
I think that's the key to being a good leader, is going first.
Honestly.
Right? Initiative.
The initiative, yeah.
And
what is this word? Astragalus. What is this? Tell me.
Well, I just want to say that for a long time, before we got to Astragalus, Mancala was games.
Was.
All there was.
Okay.
Was that in like a sport, right? And then 3,000 years, we fast forward 3,000 years, nothing really happened, and then Astragalus, like you said,
This is the first time I heard this word.
This is
cool.
Really cool. This is like your predecessor to dice. It's knuckle bones of animals that acted as proto dice. It's the like before dice. This is what they used, and you would use a knuckle bone from a different type of animal. So you'd get sheep, ox, one from each, horse.
Some people use like hyenas, I saw.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, because Africa, you found these all over the place. And everybody had a set. Everybody had a pair, not just the high priests who were using them for divination and religious ceremonies and stuff like that, but even your lowliest like farmer or hunter would travel around with a set of ostragalis and use them for games. They even found them in the presence of little pebbles that you would use in the game, and who knows what kind of game, but Jacks is a type of game that comes from ostragalis.
Directly from that.
So Jacks is a game that's 5,000 years old, more so.
Because think about the astragalus, you throw the bones, and then the way that they land, or the position that they land in. Some people would carve in boards, and so where they throw them, that would have meaning depending on the position.
Exactly.
Exactly like Jacks. Throw them out there, where they land, that has meaning.
And they were a type of divination too, so like they had meaning beyond just use in a game. The priests would use them to say, oh, what way should the tribe travel today? And they throw them up, and how they land would tell them all they needed to know about the gods and things like that, right? So real cool stuff, but
interesting.
It's not the only example of religion being seen in games, because I think around a similar time period, a little bit later on, you see things like Senet.
The first documented game.
Right, board game.
Board game.
First documented board game. It had a board that was, and it was a race game, and the objective was to beat the other person to the afterlife. And it told a story of what you would go through as you passed into the afterlife in the Egyptian mythology.
And it's like, it's a distinction here. When I heard this, I was like, Senet? No, Senet, S-E-N-E-T.
Right, it means pass in whatever Egyptian language that they used. And it's one of the oldest examples of trash talk that we have is in reference to Senet. And it was sort of like play in relation to myth making, and what I think is really cool is we have all these games with interesting themes, and Senet was the first game with like a theme.
Told a story, had a theme unfold as you went through it.
We're making such a big deal out of this stuff, but this was there first.
Yeah.
It was like huge, but it was huge in a way that it was only important to the Egyptians.
Yeah, that's why it really didn't spread out of Egypt, because it had such a cultural significance to the Egyptians.
And I'm just gonna steal from Quentin Smith here.
Yeah, steal it.
He said it's boring. It's not fun. That's probably a huge reason why I didn't go anywhere. Is like people would see it and be like, "No, actually, I think we'll just not play that. Can we play Astragalus instead? Jacks maybe."
Yeah, and what Quentin Smith said too is like the reason we know how to play the game is because it was amongst hieroglyphs, the rules of how to play the game. So hence it being the first document with rules on how to play.
Yep, it's cool. And then also in that same time period, you get games like the Royal Game of Ur, which comes out of the city of Ur, one of those. I'm not a historian.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, today we sort of are.
And this was another race game, but this was a little more interesting than Senet, in my opinion. There's like safe spaces, and you can knock each other's pieces off, and it's a race game, but it plays more like backgammon, where you're like always trying to look for places where you can knock people's pieces off and send them back to the start. And like you might. There's different strategies involved and different ways to play and tactics. It resembles cribbage, modern day cribbage.
I've never played cribbage.
It's all right. It's a card-fueled, card-driven race game.
Okay, very cool. So just these race games, getting to the end first.
Right.
And there's that's what we see is a lot of these early games.
Yeah.
But we move from, during this time period, we also have some strategy games like Go emerge. It's for 4,000 years old, right?
Yeah, this one is strictly Eastern, like China, Japan, Southeast Asia, and it's a really simple game, but it's a deep game. Unlike the Royal Game of Ur or Senet or Astragalus or Mancala, this is like where you start seeing like brain burning, like depth of play.
Yes.
And that
some real deep strategy coming into the game.
Right. It's an abstract game, abstract strategy game that's about capturing territory and placing pieces on the board in a pattern that gets you the most points.
Yeah.
Othello is a modern variation of Go.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Interesting. I've personally seen more Othello games than I've seen Go games like about in people's closets or like played and stuff like that. And like I said, it's like you're placing stones on a grid at the vertices of the grid, and then you use this to create borders and front lines and battles and to like carve off pieces of the board that then score you points, right?
Solid.
And at any time, the game is over when everybody passes. You're like, I don't want to score any more points for you, and then I don't want to score any more points for you, so it's done.
Let's tally it up.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's...
And I like what you put here. Trying to explain this game is in a brief window is like explaining why plants grow.
Right. It's just like
that deep. Yeah.
it's a game. Okay.
I love that. And so I think we back up a little bit to the Astragalus, right? And this we see as
more
the first
Middle Eastern
form of dice.
Right. Middle East is where Astragalus really flourished, and then from there it moved out. And as we get closer to the Roman period, which is like 2000 BC, 1000 BC, like 500 BC, Astragalus start getting like marks in them and numbers and like pips, right?
Yeah,
like dice, like carved into them.
Flattening the edges.
Run them off.
Evolving.
And this becomes dice.
Yep.
They didn't have any consistency between them. They're all different shapes, different weights. And the Romans had a saying that like, the gods control the result.
Will.
It's the gods' will, whatever the dice rolls. Oh, it just so happens that the gods decide that this die always comes up fives.
And you look at pictures of these and they're so unbalanced.
They're so bad.
They're so bad.
Like, it seems obvious, and we don't know if that's revisionism, talking about the Romans this way, and like, well, did they realize that that's just how dice are when you roll them? It's not actually the gods, or is this their belief system?
It is that their system.
Right. But
we do know dice are very important.
Very important to them, because Julius Caesar, when he was going to take down the Republic and create the empire, he said the die is cast. Like, it's in fate's hand. And it's such an important thing in everyone's life. It's dice.
Yes.
That one of the most famous Romans that ever lived referenced them.
And we talked about in the show note, pre-show, it's like, it was cast and he saw what happened. They rolled some dice and how many times they stabbed him.
Like 50 something times.
Yeah, so yikes, that's how much damage they did. D&D terms here.
Yeah, right. And dice are so like pervasive and so important to so many people that you even see like modern inventions like dice prisons.
Yeah,
right?
There's these superstitions that everyone has with their dice, right? Yep. Some of the Romans would be buried with their dice because because they don't want anyone to touch them, right? And then
those are mine.
Those are mine. And you see this too. It's like, I think it was the Mancala boards. When people would die, it's like, we're not going to use that board anymore because the spirits might want to try to play with us, right? So there's a lot of superstition. Superstitions still exist with dice, right? Like, you taught me about this as in the prep of dice prisons.
Yeah.
On Etsy.
Talk about superstition.
Talk about superstition. Like, rolling dice is random, but if they misbehave, you get bad rolls, you put them in the prison until they will behave.
Right.
It doesn't do anything, but we're superstition. I mean, I have some superstitions too. It's like, what do we do when we start playing D&D? It's like, all right, got to get the bad rolls out.
Yep.
Get them out. Get them out.
Do some prayers, do some...
Let's roll to the random numbers, gods.
Yep.
Let's see what we get.
Very polytheistic.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then moving from dice, this is also a Roman tradition. It's tic-tac-toe, or in ancient times, it was called 3 mens morris, 6 mens morris, 9 men's Morris. I think it goes all the way up to 16 men's
I think
Morris.
you said 12.
12 men's
12,
Morris.
yeah.
Okay. No 16 men's Morris.
No.
And this is the not speaking of the city, but like old version of tic-tac-toe where you actually kept playing after you covered up all the spaces, and there was a second phase where you could then begin moving the pieces around to remove. Every time you got 3 in a row, you could remove an opponent's piece, and you would start eliminating pieces until there was only 2 pieces left of whoever's losing, and then that would decide the winner.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yep.
It's really amazing to me as we go through this episode how these games have just stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Like how, like they might be different now, and they are different, but it's like we still play tic-tac-toe. I play that on the playground. We still love dice.
Yeah.
Right? I've played Mancala.
I've got a pound of dice at home. Like,
right? And it's like, what game has stood the test of time? Chess.
chess.
Oh man, we can't do a history episode without talking about
Nope.
chess
It's-
or Chaturanga.
Chaturanga was the first iteration.
First iteration. Okay.
And this was real simple, nothing crazy to it. And it's really in the next few iterations where chess starts like taking off.
Sure.
After Chaturanga, there's a version of chess that's 4-player. And so you would get 4 people and you'd form alliances and then try to eliminate the other team. And then as soon as you eliminate the other team, you'd turn on each other.
Yeah, I found that so interesting. I was like, maybe I'd want to play chess with that. And it
Right?
was so cool looking at the board because each player had like 8 pieces in a corner. I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and then chess is just, they took those 8 pieces in each corner and combined them and made it a one-on-one game. So it's less like root, and now it's actually like chess. And there were tons of variations of this. Every single time it moved to a new culture or group, they would just be like, oh, let's change it. Let's add more pieces. Let's see what we can do with it. There's giraffes, there's dragons, there's all sorts of stuff. When it goes to Japan, it completely changes name and becomes shogi. And for a really long time, it went over to China, and then China and Japan had no connections because of Japanese isolationism.
You were telling me about that.
Yeah, and it had to go all the way from India, all the way to Europe, and then the Europeans brought it to Japan, and then Japan made their own version with all these complicated, like, dragons and crazy pieces.
Like one of the boards he showed had like, it was like mega chess or
200 pieces.
I think
on
it
each
was like
side.
400 on each side.
Was it
Like,
400?
I think so.
Yeah.
It was something absurd, like a 36 by 36 tile. So do the math, over 1,000 squares.
Oh yeah, and then there was like perfect chess and all these different versions, but eventually Europeans settled on, and this is what we play today, Mad Queen's chess.
And I found this fascinating how this came about, because early games of chess, like, they had representations of animals and stuff, but then that, due to religious reasons, those got moved to more abstract pieces. So you'd still have your king and what was it called? The
Vizier.
The vizier.
Yeah, it was it was very Middle Eastern because the Middle East is right next to India.
Yes.
So.
And so as queens started coming to power in Europe and like Russia, I believe he said, and other places. Spain, yeah.
Isabella.
Yeah, they're like, okay, let's make that vizier the queen, and now that's the version of chess we play today.
Right.
The Mad Queen's chess.
Exactly. And
I wanted to put this here too. Like, there's variations of chess everywhere, and we found that. So one of our favorite animes, Hunter x Hunter, he actually makes a board game in that inspired by Korean chess.
Yep.
It's called, in the show, it's called Gungi.
And in Korea, it's called Jeongi, which is just literally chess, but in Korean.
Korean chess.
Korean chess.
So the implications are huge, right? Standing the test of time, being part of anime, and just traveling the globe. And this is what we're talking about like, give us a new game, please, give us something to play. And everyone picked up chess.
Right. And the Royal Game of Ur is said to be like the beginning of backgammon, but I don't really want to get into that. And in Europe, they had this crazy invention called the printing press.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the episode.
I hate this part. Oh man, I'm gonna get through it real fast.
Goose game.
Goose game. So they started burning gambling and destroying casinos and shutting down like gambling because it's bad for your soul. It's bad religiously and
We
stuff.
had this really cool anecdote of like 1452, I believe.
Yep.
This priest gave such a moving speech on the ills of gambling in games, that they went out and burned over 3,000 backgammon boards.
Yeah, because this was the rise of Protestantism in Europe, right? Everything before that, it was Christianity, and then it just suddenly, Protestants were everywhere, and they were rewriting all the rules and all of the like crazy stuff that was up with Catholicism. And they started fundamentally changing Europe, and this through printing Bibles and through printing games. They changed what gaming would look like for the next 400 years. And that's the Goose Game.
Which is a racing game. It usually comes in like this spiral pattern where you're trying to get to the end the quickest. You roll dice.
Sounds familiar.
And there are like bridges and people throughout, but it's called the Goose Game because they're obsessed with goose, but there's like geese on the boards that will double your move if you land on it. And the very first version of the game was broken.
Yeah.
So if you rolled a 9, you would land on the goose. That would take you to another goose. That would take you to another goose, and then you win the game.
All the way to the end.
Roll the 9, you just win the game.
And it reminds me a lot of Talisman, which is just
modern Goose Game.
Yeah, modern Goose Game. You roll the dice, you move, and then a thing happens to you. You have no agency. Is that a toy? Is that our definition of a toy?
It's not a toy.
No.
If there's no agency, it's an event.
It's an event. Yes. So you just sit there and it's like watching a movie. You're like, oh, this thing is happening. Whoa, how is this a game? I don't like Goose Game.
You don't like it? It's bad. It's super funny. It's not good. They used it to teach lessons about how to be good Protestant children, and they just kept making new and new versions. Sometimes you were inside of a goose moving. Sometimes every piece was an egg.
Sometimes it's about penitentiaries.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about the French Revolution. Like, there was one, the first map game that was the first foldable map as well, was just traveling around Europe. And because it was made in Protestant England, if you landed in Rome in Italy, you kissed the feet of the Pope and you had to go to Iceland and spend 3 turns there. Just suffer. Just go suffer in the cold.
So we'll move past it, but I will say Talisman, Candyland is a modern Goose Game, and again, standing the test of time. There's literally a game called Untitled Goose Game. You play as a goose and you're a menace to civilians.
I don't think it has anything to do with it.
It has nothing to do with it, but it's like, we like the geese. Why do we like geese?
What's with geese?
What's with geese?
And eventually the Goose Game kept going along until, I think it was Milton Brothers?
Yeah, Milton Bradley.
Milton Bradley in 1860 said, Goose Game's kind of boring. What if we, I don't know, changed it and made it like interesting? So they released the Checkered Game of Life. It's, again, a race game about life and learning, like so many Goose Games before it. But really, that just leads into the creation of the Game of Life in 1960.
Your first and favorite game?
How did
you played with your mom?
How do I have such a weird connection to Goose Game?
It all goes back to Goose Game.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's all relative. That's gaming for you. It's all related.
Yeah, that brings us here.
It's exhausting.
It was exhausting. That was fun. So, what really stands out to me about this is just really how they evolve, but they stay. The staying power of these games, right? So you had a question of like, what modern games do you think will stay the test of time?
Yeah, any of these?
For me, I had a cop-out answer. I thought collectible card games.
Yeah.
Because people just like being able to play with the characters, the heroes that they see.
Yeah.
So that was or Dungeons and Dragons. I think role-playing and using dice, I think that'll stand the test. It's here to stay.
Like a type of storytelling that you can interact with. It's pretty cool.
So, I think that wraps it up. What game would you take back in time with you?
Oh, take back in time with me?
If you were gonna I want to spread a game across the world.
I would probably take something really annoying like Yellow and Young.
I think it would be D&D. It's just easy. You can teach anyone that with any content.
Right? You could use Astrogales to play it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's solid. Yeah, I could rig the dice. So, well, that wraps it up. Thanks for joining us on this history episode.
Woo, it was
big. We covered a
sprint.
lot of years, right?
Yeah.
So if you have any questions or feedback, specifically, if you have any feedback, like you messed that up or I know this detail, let us know at shareddiscoveryshow@gmail.com. Thanks again to BCTV for having us, letting us put this production on.
You're the best.
You rock.
You rock.
As we close, thank you for joining us in episode 9 of Shared Discovery. Please make sure to have fun, play some games, be kind to each other, and Ron, sign us out.
Riches must be divided, but real wealth can be shared.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah.
Let's